All right, we're in here Saturday morning. This is the 8th?
Yeah, it's the 8th.
8th of November,
Yeah.
2003. And there were 9 of us hunting, first time ever. Largest group hunting out of the Sand River Hilton. We remodeled the bathroom into a new 2-space sleeping area that Josh and I slept in last night. It was terrific. Worked out just right. This morning everybody went out. I actually started on the stand that's right outside the trailer here. Spent probably, pretty close to an hour there, and then decided I'd head straight north and just mosey through the woods, and I got just beyond what used to be the old trailer, probably about 50 yards, and up goes this doe, goes, prancing, bounding, 3 or 4 times, and then stops, and I throw my glove off, which I had in the mitten mode, and get ready to shoot. So I can't see it, but I can see it, and then I see some feet, so I take a shot, thinking something's going to happen. It'll take off and bound somewhere, and instead it just keeps walking, and every once in a while I could see a crunch, and then I'd see some feet, and I'd take another shot. 5 shots later, it continues just walking off. I hear it go crunch, and I had not brought along any extra shells, so there I sat as it went crunch away from me. Came back to the trailer, then headed all the way north off the road to Sears Tower. Went up there, and as I was just approaching Sears Tower, son of a gun, off to the east towards Dad, where Dad was, there was another one bounding off away from me. But no time at all to try to lift the gun on that. And as I got up on the stand, I paid a lot of attention there to the east, but didn't see anything, and Dad never saw it either. But then after the majority of the morning went by, I headed over to Dad's stand, and on the way in I decided, that deer might have just bedded down. And so as I'm headed again on the old trail now, from the second cutover, I take the old trail back, which would have brought us to the old trailer spot, about halfway to the creek. Son of a gun, if I don't look out in front of me, and there's this deer again bounding off away from me. I have no question it's the same doe, and so I shoot 3 times at her rear end, but end up trailing her across the creek and lose her there. But I never saw any signs of blood or anything like that. There's snow out there, a couple inches of snow, so it was pretty easy to track, but lots of nothing. She had my number today, and so I fired a total of 8 shots at the same deer and never put her down. So that's it so far.
Here we go. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
All right. My name is Jerry Kuss, and this morning, the hunting season of 2003, the opener, I slept. I woke up, had breakfast, decided that bed was awfully warm, so I went back into it and stayed there. And as it turns out, nobody else saw any deer, but we do have one example of a deer sighting. So I'll pass it on to Jeremy here, and here we go.
Well, this is my first year here, and evidently I'm the only one that saw a deer, other than the fact that my deer was Bambi. I decided to let off and let it go.
You were hunting on Beaver Point?
Yeah, Beaver Point.
All right.
It was the only place the deer was spotted.
What time of day was that roughly?
I'd guess 7:45 in the morning.
45. Where did it come from?
Looked like Josh chased Bambi right out of it, but...
Okay, so Josh was over on the pine tree.
Yeah, Josh was just northeast of me.
Okay.
But Bambi's life was short-lived, because 2 minutes later, our neighbors did shoot it.
All right, thank you. Here we go. All right, we're heading outside. It's Saturday night. Oh man, we got an eclipse.
It's cold out here.
And it's really cold. It's about 10 degrees right now, but the moon is almost totally eclipsed at this moment. Todd's making pork chops outside here.
That's good. Good reviews on the chops?
Oh, excellent chops.
those are the best chops I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Yeah. Not even kidding.
Really?
So I'm gonna end up calling you. And
I'll
get
name my next child after you for giving me that compliment.
I don't know about that. Those are really, really good though. I could eat those once a week, definitely. Maybe twice.
Glad you
liked
them.
them.
A college kid.
Glad you like them.
Once a week? Not every day?
Not every day. You can't have pork chops every day.
You have to have pizza at 6 days.
Exactly.
Saturday afternoon, I believe it was Jerry and Doug and I and Joshua went out. I think it was 12:30, 1 o'clock. And they were going to put up a stand, so they went over to the blue line and went to put up the stand for Jer. I decided to go down to the lowland, but changed my mind. I want to go look at my old stand, which is on Pollock Point. And I start walking up the little ridge there. I saw all kinds of scrapes around this little maple trees. I thought, well, I'll give that a shot. Try to sit up on that stand and see if it was safe enough. And sure enough, I managed to get up there. Well, it was a beautiful afternoon, and just like I say, so I sat there, and the boys went back in, and about 2:30, Jerry came out, and I waved at him, and at the same time, I looked off towards, that'd be the southeast, towards Seavers Point. I heard something, and there it was, a doe. A deer. I really can't tell you what it was. And it took a couple bounds, and I got the flag, and that was it for that. So I turned back around facing my little stand down the hole, and I sat there and enjoyed the afternoon. And about, 3:45, I thought I heard something, and sure enough, coming off to my left again around the point, was a deer. And I got to see it for a moment, and then it stopped between two trees and turned, and I couldn't see its head. I knew it was a deer. So I said, well, I better take a shot at it before it takes off. So I brought my rifle up, got Brown in the scope, and squeezed off a shot, and down it went.
Did you shoot left or right?
I shot left-handed. And I found that with that new stock on, the new stock on the rifle, I had a problem because it's a little too long, and I couldn't get up on the scope as easy, and so I probably will go back to the other stock as long as I could still see in the scope. So anyhow, I knew it was down, I saw it was down, and so I just waited for 5 minutes or so to make sure it wasn't moving, and I went down there, and sure enough, here's a little nubbin buck. So I proceeded to clean it out, and Pollock's Point and Buck Point there again proved that it still holds its charm, and I hung it up and went back to my stand, and like I say, happy that we got one in the pot. We're not going to invite the neighbors over for venison, but we'll have a few hamburgers.
This is Duane. That afternoon, I was heading out about 2 o'clock, and as I rose up to Doug's old 3M stand, or IDS rather, I thought I saw a flicker of something, but I saw so many flickers yesterday, I kind of brushed it off, but just for the heck of it, when I got to the top of the hill there, I went headed towards Pollock's real slowly in case something came through, but I didn't see anything there for about 10-15 minutes. So then I went back around and headed north to the north landing there, and son of a gun, got about 50 yards down the road that way, and off to my right, boom, 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 here's this, it looked like a doe, but whatever it was bounding out into the middle of that area, Mickey's Point. And so just about that time, Doug and Jeremy and Josh show up, at the point there, and I yelled to them saying that there was a deer in the area, and so Doug and I walked through, and Jeremy and Josh held their point on the road out there towards Polox, and we tried to drive it out, but who knows where it could have gone, so quickly. So, but saw some deer again. And then I spent the rest of the afternoon actually walking the road back and forth between the two landings. I'd walk as far as I could see you, and then I'd turn around and walk back to the landing. It was, you can see a lot of area, and by just walking real slow, I thought there might be a chance that something would come up. But didn't see anything after that. All right, you're on.
Okay. Well, let's see. It was a pretty quiet day for me on the stand, and about 2 o'clock I went back on my tower, and it was so comfortable. I sort of relaxed and enjoyed the scenery, and pretty much decided that I was going to have another quiet afternoon. But after looking to the west for a while, I turned around to the east, and here's a doe and a fawn out about 75 yards heading north. So I shot at the doe, and it turned around and stopped, heading. It was actually heading southeast, and so I thought I had a pretty good level on it, and fired, and down it went. And so then I swung over to look for the young one, and I thought I spotted it and fired, but I was just shooting at a log, and then but that spooked the young one into prancing around. It's behind a bunch of trees and brush and crap, and so every chance I got, I fired again, and I burned up another 5 rounds on it, and then it disappeared to the east. And after I waited for a while, it's starting to get dark, so I started down to got out that doe, and I couldn't find it. And so ends up I had to come back with nothing, and that's about the story. I'm going to try again in the morning to see if I can locate it, but I'm unusually disappointed.
Thank you. Yeah, as I recall, it was a total of 6 shots that Dad took.
This is Todd. Saturday afternoon, I was on the blue line north. We've called it Poacher's Stand, and did have some action. I had what appeared to be just a small doe come from the south and kind of poke her head under the brush to take a look at me or sniff me or something, and I could tell it wasn't a big deer, and I really didn't have a good shot, but she probably came within 40 yards. And she went away, and I was hoping something would follow her in, and as the sun went down, I gave a couple more grunts on the grunt call, and sure enough, some other hunter who's up the ridge to the northeast took one shot, and I got a feeling I called a buck in for him. But that's all I saw and all the action I had.
Okay, we're Sunday morning of opening weekend, and we have some action with Joshua, who was on the pine tree stand or the swing set stand.
It was about 8:20 in the morning, and it came over from my right side of the west and started walking east, and I went to pull up my gun and went to shoot and realized that I had mittens on, so I had to take my mitten off, and when I did that, I moved my chair and it stopped and looked at me, so I finished removing my mitten and got the scope on her and pulled the trigger, and it kicked his hind legs out and took off. I fired again and once more, and we are still in the process of tracking it. So I hit it, and there's lots of blood, but still have to find it.
Presently it's 10:30 in the morning, so we're letting it hopefully lay down and die, and then we'll go out and check it out. Where we're going to head? Down into Sievert's area?
Yeah, it'll be down in that area somewhere.
Well, I'm back the following Friday after the first weekend, and it ends up we did go out that afternoon after lunch and attempted to trail the deer. There was an excellent blood trail that Josh and Doug got on. We headed up onto Seavers Point, and the deer just curved around. So we're heading initially straight south, and then it curved to the east, headed straight for the river, and we ended up deciding that we would go after it for half an hour, and when our half an hour was up, we were at the river's edge, and still a trail, but nowhere had it laid down. It just kept on going, so Joshua didn't get his doe. Okay, this is 2003, second weekend. Dad and I just got back in from the second weekend Saturday morning hunt. It was drizzling out there, almost to the point of where you'd call it rain, but pretty warm, probably low 40s, high 30s, no wind. I saw a lone doe. I hunted off Pollock's Point on the top, and off as far as I could see to the west. I glanced over, and sure enough, here's a doe bounding away from me. So I brought my gun up and took a single shot, and then coming in, went down there and took a look around. But this is the year that the doe is meant to get away from me so far. So otherwise, Dad didn't see or hear anything other than hauling the trailer out with him behind Big Red and not realizing it till he got out there. We'll find out this afternoon. Okay, I don't remember if I mentioned last night, which was Saturday night, coming in. I came in literally in the dark as I was just approaching Doug's IDS tower, the old one, he stand corner there. Son of a gun, if I couldn't see in the distance these two flags, bong, bong, bong. They must have been right on the corner there, and as I approached them, they took off down and across towards Dad's stand. So just waving their butts in the air, ridiculing and letting me know that once again I missed another. So now I'll turn it over to Dad here.
Well, we're talking Sunday morning, and I spent a couple hours on the stand, and it kept raining a little bit more and more, so I finally put up the umbrella, and as I'm jockeying things around a little bit, I finally decided that it's time to sit down and relax. Almost time to give it up, and just as I swung over, I spot something moving, and sure enough, here's a nice buck coming up the ridge, only about 100 feet north of me, and so of course I lift up the rifle, and by the time I get him what I think is in the sights, he's stopped behind a couple of trees and some brush that evidently obscured him enough that what I thought was a deer in my scope ended up to be a moss on a tree, and he immediately crouched, so I was hopeful that I hit him, but about 2 seconds of that, and up he jumped and took off up a little further and down the trail, and I got another shot off, but ended up that shot I ended up finding a streak of mud on the trail about 200 feet down, and so that that was it for the shooting. And then I waited a while and hunted for blood, found no blood, and started tracking him down the line, and spent quite a while tracking him around the what I thought was his tracks anyway, and down through the brush and the hollow and back up and around. And all I did is get myself all lathered up, sweaty, and so no buck again. And it was frustrating, but hey, I appreciate that a lot better than seeing and doing nothing. So that's my deer story for today.
All right, so that closes out 2003. We ended up with a singleton. John shot the first weekend, and as I recall, that was the afternoon of the first weekend. So we'll wait till 2004.